Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Way Forward game. We're going back to the Mighty Switch games, redoing these after we last played them God knows how long ago. But this time it's a little different. We have someone from Way Forward here with us. We have Austin Ivansmith, who is the director for this game, the Hyperdrive Edition.
Hello, I'm Austin.
Thank you for coming on. It's very rare that actually, by very rare, I mean we've never actually had somebody who's worked on a game we've commentated on. So this is a treat for us.
Okay, great. That's fun.
You sort of almost accidentally oversold us there.
Well, I was going to say, we have spoken to developers before, but not in a commentary.
And I mean, never does also count as not often, right?
I suppose.
It's too early in the day for such riddles.
How long ago did we last do Mighty Switch Force anyway?
It was fairly soon after the Hyperdrive Edition came out, so that was like 2015, I think.
Yikes.
Well, Hyperdrive came out in 2012. It was a launch title on the Wii U.
So it's been a while, man.
I think it got ported to PC around then, around 2015.
And this is the Switch version you're playing, right, Ryan?
Yes, this is the Mighty Switch collection on Switch.
Okay. Man, I have not played this game in forever, but the last thing I remember was playing the Half Genie Hero Mighty Switch Force kind of style for one of the DLC games, and like that was also really good. And man, this game is just so much fun.
I actually didn't know that there was a Mighty Switch Force collection on Switch. I'm gonna have to get my hands on that because my Wii U is gone.
Yeah.
I remember this was one of the very first 3DS games to come out digitally that people really kind of took note of back when that first came out, back on the 3DS eShop. People were talking about this game a lot. Because this is not the first Mighty game. There were two on the DSiWare shop as well. Those are also very good. But this was the first one that I think got extremely widespread attention, if I remember correctly.
Pretty much, yeah. So when I started at Way Forward in 2009, they were already in development on Mighty Flip Champs for DSi, so released to the DSi shop, and that was really fun just to play it, because I just started at the company. It's like, hey, you want to try this out? And then we did Mighty Milky Way not long after that for DSi, and then I think it was not long after the release of that they announced the 3DS, and then we came up with the concept explicitly for the 3DS. The idea was, how do we take something like Flip Champs, make another Mighty title, something that's small, you could beat in 30 minutes if you know what you're doing, it's full of puzzles and, scores to beat. And so that's where we came up with Mighty Switch Force.
Did you work on Milky Way?
I didn't. No, I was on another project at the time. That was Sean Velasco, James Montagna. I forgot who else. I think David D'Angelo. So like a couple of the guys that went on to go to Yacht Club, and then James Montagna, another director at Way Forward.
Okay, because that is another underappreciated Way Forward game as well. With like the fully voiced musical intro and all that. It's almost like, if you've never heard of it before, it's almost like a 2D Mario Galaxy in a lot of ways. That game is also really, really fun. Was this the first game you directed at Way Forward then?
No, I started at Way Forward in 2009, and I directed games there, and I had just finished, I finished Thor God of Thunder, and then I did Happy Feet 2 for 3DS and DS, and then I got brought onto this. Initially, I was just supposed to do the art. So we had a level designer on it, Michael Herbster, and he had designed a number of levels and concepts. Whoever's doing this is doing a horrible job. Just, I just gotta say.
I'm sorry, I'm not a speedrunner.
You missed par by 3.36 seconds. Originally, I was just supposed to come on and take this tile set and apply it to all the levels. It's just a single tile set. I think Hank Nyborg did it, he's done so many Shantae games and things for us in the past, but I had to take these levels and find a way to take one tile set and make it interesting across 16 levels, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good challenge, but at the same time I was also, I love level design, and I helped out with some of Michael Herbster's concepts. We just call him Herbster, and ended up also designing some levels myself. So this one I designed, and I just sort of took over as associate director. Matt was busy with some Shantae things, and I basically got promoted up to being the associate director on Switch Force. And then when Hyperdrive came out, I was the director on it, and basically porting it to Wii U to 1080p. Overseeing the animation, turning all the pixel art into these higher res hand-drawn art pieces.
Is that just a question I've kind of always wondered when they do like much cleaner versions of games later on? Just is that kind of people always think it's just you just make a new model or asset and just slap it over the old one. I assume it's not quite that simple.
It isn't quite that simple. I will say though, in the case of this game, it is running in the same engine, and so it was as simple as replacing just the frames of animation. So we matched the original Switch Force characters were animated, I think designed and animated by Joachim Sandberg, who everyone knows as Konjac, and he did like Iconoclast. So he's been an animator at WayForward for years. I kind of joke in a way that it's like we funded his game because he worked on it for 8 years and he kept working with us on projects. At the time, he's such a talented animator. I love his stuff so much.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because I fairly recently did buy Iconoclast, and I've only played it for like 10 minutes on a stream once, but it did look very pretty.
Yeah, so much of his artistic talent and charm just lends itself to the WayForward style. It's like he kind of helps define it in a way. Him and Hank Nyborg, and other people just really set the tone for us.
Picturing the game in my head, now that you've said that, I can totally see it in Iconoclast.
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing that WayForward is really known for, almost more than anything else, is probably the quality of the sprite animation you've done. Like for on the 3DS, Mighty Switch, I almost called it Flip Champs by mistake. Mighty Switch Force and 2 both look amazing, and this Hyperdrive edition as well. Like it's astounding to me that it's the same engine as the 3DS version because it just looks so much better, even though I suppose it makes sense that it's all the same pieces.
Right. Yeah, so the original game, so we have a programmer who wrote his own game engine that we've worked with a number of times. He also helped develop some of our early Game Boy Advance and DS engine architecture. He wrote his own engine, and we ended up using that on a number of games, including Happy Feet and this and a couple others. And one of the advantages of it is it wasn't a tile-based sprite engine, but at the same time, what was advantageous was each of these layers you see are a single ping that I laid out in Photoshop, and I was able to paint in gradients and shading and different elements. So it looks, there's subtle gradients everywhere on all of the the yellow and all those all the shading you see right there in the back where Gendarmer's flying by. That's all hand painted in to kind of add some depth to it. So it really gave me a lot of freedom to make it look as not look as tiled. It was pretty fun.
Yeah,
and I think it's something we did recently on the newest Shantae, Seven Sirens, where it's like a similar process where it's, take a tile and then all those buildings in the background, they have a highlight on one edge and they're darkened so that they aren't, so it's easy to see. You're adding a rim light to all the trees, so it has a time of day feel, and it's easier to read against these lock blocks, So.
For sure, it's just it's a small thing, but it was something that I've always done ever since I was a kid with games. I was just kind of, the better the background looks, the more I kind of just mentally, while I'm playing, put the lore of what is this city and what goes on here and things like that. And I think great background art really helps with that kind of immersive feeling even simple games like this can have.
It's something that people mostly retroactively talk about with older games, is how they used to see all these cool backgrounds in the levels and wonder what it would be like to run around in them. Except I'm actually kind of picturing that in my head right now. The background of this level looks like a very cool level.
When we did DuckTales and we had kids come in for usability testing, the first thing they said is, I don't like that I can't go in the background. I'm like stuck, like walking left and right. I don't like that. So, yeah.
Did you have kids do testing for this game too?
So it's funny because around that same time, a couple years before, we did Boy and His Blob, and we had kid testers come in and test things. We also had other employees test it. But better than a kid, we had our tyrannical overlord, who is really not the best at games, play it. So he was kind of better than having like a 7-year-old play the game in some ways. But he meticulously played through every single stage, and he really helped tone down a lot of the difficulty and help sort of the puzzle building reveal itself a little better. Because the first 6 stages that we just went through, each stage is introducing a new puzzle element, and each stage has about 5 puzzles. It's funny because like Pushmo came out around the exact same time as this. And
Pushmo's amazing. I love that game.
I loved it too, but also at the same time though, they would take one puzzle and make it into a level, and then the next level you do the exact same puzzle with like one more slightly changed mechanic. And in this game, it's kind of like we're introducing those mechanics, but one after the other in a sequence.
So that's why there's 5 Hooligan Sisters.
Basically, yeah. And with each Hooligan Sister, we try to do like one puzzle per Hooligan Sister, and sometimes a puzzle for getting to Gendarmer, if it's not right there. And you saw that in stage 5, incident 5, where you had to defeat the 5 turtles, I call them, and they open each gate. And I think are there 5 turtles? Well, anyway, you collect the 5 Hooligan Sisters, and there's one more turtle you have to get in order to get to Gendarmer at the end.
I've always wondered about this in game design. Because you're obviously the one designing the gameplay, a lot of things probably seem more obvious to you yourself. So I imagine it takes a lot of work to figure out at what kind of pace a fresh new player would learn things as they go. And I've always wondered like what the process is for that kind of thing.
It's a lot of trial and error, and sometimes it's you get someone to play that you get fresh eyes on it, and you just sit back and watch and try not to answer questions, unless they're absolutely stuck or there's something that has not been implemented that needs to happen. So that's usually what it is. It's just watching, observing.
Yeah, trying to figure out like how quickly players got lost on a particular part and how you can convey that better.
That happened a lot on this, and that's why it was really great having Voldy play, because we'd sit and watch him, and he would miss something, and then I'd look at Matt, and he'd look at me, and we'd kind of like nod, and it's like we were thinking the same thing, like, okay, that's not good, and the thing with this game was, almost all the puzzles, or a lot of major puzzles, all need to be on the same screen. This one's interesting because it's like you're flying vertically. This was a test, actually. We weren't even sure that we could fit puzzles within a screen width, and then once we were able to, it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then I think after that's when Matt decided that the final level should be an ascending level also. So it was pretty. This level was just a whim. Like, I don't think I could do this. I actually also had a single screen puzzle, but fitting 5 Hooligan Sisters on a single lock screen was it was a little too tight.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Now I'm just imagining you and Matt watching their Vol or whoever was testing, just like with like clipboard and stuff, just sitting behind them, scribbling notes furiously as they do anything in the game.
It kind of is. Voldy, he owns the company, so he calls himself the tyrannical overlord, but he's like the nicest guy on earth. So
yeah,
I've never we see him all the time in the credits. So
I've never really done game design, but I have tried to DM a few Dungeons and Dragons games, and it's pretty similar in that I make a puzzle or whatever, and it's like, or a combat encounter, it's like, oh, this isn't too hard. But when you're the person making something, your estimation of how obvious or difficult something is much different than whoever's playing.
Oh, definitely.
In a similar vein, I've come up with a few roleplay scenarios in my time that I thought, like, this is going to be so cool. The players are going to figure out this clever way of getting out of the problem, and then they just wind up talking to each other the whole time, and not actually doing the clever things that I thought they would do.
Well, and to be honest, we didn't really talk about it, but a few minutes ago on Incident 7, whoever was playing this, you kept, when you were on the leftmost arrow, you tried to go through the arrows versus just following the path of them. It's like you didn't have faith that we were going to take you where you needed to go, but if you just, in that level, hit every single one of those purple blocks in sequence, we will take you to the Hooligan Sister. Like, we're not tricking you, you know?
No, it's not so much tricking. It's more, I think I can make this jump and skip a block.
Yeah.
Thus I don't have to do the reaction.
But then
puzzle,
you actually had to react more, and it took you longer than if you would have had faith.
Welcome to being a stubborn player.
You know what? I'm a stubborn player also, so I'm just saying it is funny being the designer of it and watching it happen like we're talking about. So yeah, and then coming up here is just something like fun. I still have the photo from my whiteboard where I drew this out. Like, I wonder if we could do this, where we fly at the same time as the bomb. You know, it's just, this game was just a lot of experimenting with, hey, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? You know, like discovering the rules as you make it.
I'm curious if you did something, considering this is a puzzle game and it's just using a lot of blocks. Was there ever like a kind of like a testing program where you just threw blocks around and could just see how things interacted and just mess with them as the character?
I mean, we usually create gyms, you know, so that we can experiment with different things. You know, what happens if we set them up in this sequence? A lot of those elements got copied and pasted into individual sections of levels. Like the end of Incident 1, where you run through the blocks and then you jump on top of them. That was in the gym, just to see like what would it be like to jump from, you know, tower to tower, and if you fall in, you're stuck and you have to, you know, run back, kind of thing. So yeah, we have gyms for that kind of thing to test this stuff out. And Incident 10, this is an interesting one because this was, you know, because Matt was the director on this, and one of the things he wanted to see was the first 6 stages are all tutorialized for all the different block types. Stage 7 is a breather, you can't die, you just fly around, there's no way to kill yourself or get hurt, no enemies. And then stage 10, he wanted it to be a repeat of 5 with the elements sort of repeated, you know, and kind of like a remix in a way. And so this is sort of a slight revisit of Incident 5.
Oh,
that's fair.
so
I mean, I know you mentioned, you know, you had to kind of make easier levels as time goes on. Is the extra stuff, the extra incidents in this game kind of leftovers from those harder levels, or now we're kind of on the topic of
exactly, yes, difficult? Many of the puzzles from the Hyper Edition levels are the things that we had to cut. So Voldy would play it, he wouldn't be able to beat it, we'd have to make it easier, and I threw a temper tantrum like, it's not that hard. We gotta keep it. So I cut it, but I remember a lot of it I had to go from memory. But some of them I had to create new puzzles that were remixes of these puzzles. It was interesting, like remixing this level, because it was like a remix of a remix in a way. Yeah.
One thing I really appreciate about this game is that if you're just trying to get to the end, it is a fairly forgiving game. Like, I can't remember too many times when I've ever died. I don't think that even on my first playthrough any level took me too long, but one thing I do appreciate is that while the game itself is fairly easy to beat, you have these par times which really do test your abilities, because I don't think I ever got all pars on all of the levels. There were a few of them where I just couldn't reach it. What was the process for like figuring out how fast you have to be in order to get the par time? Like, what was done to consider, okay, this is fast enough to be considered the hard time to reach?
By the way,
for the level,
can we just call out whoever's playing this right now? It's just disappointing.
Ryan, yeah.
Ryan, come on, man.
Ryan.
No, it's funny. I just want to say real fast in that last part, you know, everyone panics there, but you don't have to smash right away after launching. So if you like launch and then you jump out of there, then you can smash the turtle guy with no problem. But like whenever people ran into that one, we kept it as it was because I was kind of a little panicked, like I want to change it. But yeah, so the part times, it was really just I came up with all the part times. I played through the levels. I went at a not breakneck speed. You know, on the previous Mighty titles, we had a letter system like D, C, B, A, S. And Matt didn't want to do that this time. He just wanted to do par. It's like you got it or you didn't. And, you know, it was kind of a neat idea. And I just played through the levels and then gave some wiggle room for not doing it perfect. And I think watching one of these, Ryan gets really close on one stage. He's off by like 3 seconds. It's like, and it's just close.
I missed one earlier by like less than a second.
Right, and so you do that. You go, oh man, I was so close. And it's like, you know what? I can do that again. I can get that real quick. And you just like, you know, it's forgiving enough that you feel like you can accomplish it. It isn't like I play some games and I get like a C, and I'm like, I don't want to play that again.
I don't think that's a bad system, honestly. Like, I have a tendency to be really put off by time challenges in games because, like, you know, like insane speedrunning tactics. Like, it's not even just that I'm bad at it, it's that I don't find it fun to go after. So, but something a little bit more, you know, a time challenge that's just you're doing good rather than, oh man, you're so amazing, super skilled. No one can beat you. That's
right. And we were talking about this earlier, where it's like it's easy to make a game too hard, but it's hard to make a game too easy because you get used to it when you're making it, and you know the mechanics, and you know how the player moves, and you know all these things, and so you kind of forget how someone that doesn't know how they should move will react, and what they will, you know, they don't do what they should do. What, you know, should being a very subjective term, right?
Yeah.
So when you know, are making something, I know on Marble Knights, you know, I had programmers that are like, I don't like this, it's too easy. I'm like, that's fine, let's see how my kids do. You know, so for that game, my kids, you know, they're avid gamers these days, and I put the game in their hands. I'm like, what do you think? And I just watch them play and just see how they react. And they, you know, sometimes on the easiest things, they're still freaking out just because the enemy looks scary, but they're laughing and having fun, and you know, it's cool. So yeah.
It's also nice just the way that things are framed, because if you put a part-time, that's considered a challenge. Like, ooh, can you get it this fast? Versus if you're playing a game where they rank you, there's more of a, oh, you stink because you got the D rank kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit, definitely more feel bad.
Well,
in that sense.
Sometimes sometimes it does fit the tone of a particular game to have that feel bad feeling. But there are definitely those games like Celeste where it definitely feels better to not have the game actively criticize you for not doing amazing.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, it's about the game's tone, obviously. Like a game like, I remember I was when I was playing Bayonetta, I always got like the lowest rank in that, where they have the statue of the dopey guy from the opening cutscene, and I'm like, this game's making fun of me. But in that case, like, the game is kind of cheeky like that, so it fits a little bit better versus
like,
some other games.
You know, in Sonic Unleashed, when you get an E rank and it plays that out of tune version of the stage clear theme, that's hilarious. But in something like this, which has more of a I don't want to say necessarily happy-go-lucky, but definitely a cuter tone, it does seem to fit more to walk into a landmine and get your legs blown off.
Now, I will say that platform, that soft platform before it, I mean, if you stand on the edge to the right, you can shoot those before you get to them. And there is sort of a semi-strategy there, but yeah, it can seem more unforgiving than it is. One of my favorite jumps.
So speaking of the game's aesthetic, at what point in developing the game did you come up with like the cops and robbers sort of motif and like the designs for the Hooligan Sisters and Patty and all of that? Like, so, was that later or earlier?
No, that was very early. So, oh, by the way, I found out very late that there was a non-prog you could get here without collecting all the girls, and so that's where there's blocks on the right that just to launch you back to the beginning. It was near the end. The QA person got to the end. They're like, nope, can't do it. I'm like, God darn it! All right, so I had to put that in.
Girl suicide block.
And I just want to say real fast, because like there's three kind of types of stages in this game. There's like the straight ahead linear ones, and then there's like the ones where you start in the center and you kind of go out in like 5 different directions, which I kind of call the butterfly. And there's stages like this, which is like the snake, where it's linear but it interweaves. This is one of my favorite levels I designed because, you know, you fly through all the areas you've previously seen.
Oh yeah, you launch through that row of middle blocks.
Exactly.
In the stage. Oh,
exactly.
Man, that was a cool part.
Designing this, and also this is I hate this part where people always have the bombs drop on them. I feel kind of bad. I try not to do blind, you know, things happening to them, or like here you can accidentally break all the blocks on the right, even though you're, you know, supposed to be doing the one on the left. So yeah, the theme. So just to kind of go back even one step further. You know, at Way Forward, we have, you know, multiple directors who oversee individual projects, and we all, you know, work under the creative director, Matt Bozon. And at that time, you know, we would have some director meetings here and there where, you know, all the directors get together and talk about the projects, and sometimes we'd just be talking about random design stuff for fun. But it was right around the time the 3DS was announced, and we were talking about, like, okay, well, they're going to do an eShop. I forget, you know, it's so long ago now. I don't remember if they announced the eShop or announced the console, because I know we were on DSi. But the idea was, how do we, what small game do we make that uses the 3DS to its advantage? And we talked, and one of the things that I kept pushing for was we need to make another Flip Champs, because Flip Champs was one of the best games on that platform. Like, Flip Champs can only be played on a DS, in my opinion. I know we released it on the PSP, but there's something about playing it on the DS, looking at one screen and seeing a mirror image on the screen below that's kind of wavy, and that's like the next screen you're going to get.
Flip Champs is absolutely amazing.
I mean,
I can't imagine playing it on, maybe if you had a dual monitor setup, but even then I feel like left or right
that'd be pretty
isn't
cool.
as natural as looking up and down for that game.
Well, then you can just set up dual monitors at home, have one underneath, rotate it. Yeah, I'll hook you up. No, but but the idea came in like, well, how do we do something that's, you know, a series of layers that are coming in and out from the background? And then we decided to do like kind of an off and on kind of thing. And at first it was going to be hidden. We didn't really understand how the 3D would work. But we talked about it, had these ideas and what would happen. And then the next week, Matt Bozon, our creative director, said, "Hey guys, like after our meeting, I just had so much inspiration. He went home and he just drew a bunch of things. He's like, I got this idea. It's a futuristic world. There's this character. Her name's Patty Wagon, and you know, and it's like, and she's a cop. So, and then he drew her like, I think initially, I forget which cartoons I've seen this in, but like when a character starts running and like their legs turn into wheels, like not just they rotate, but like her legs would actually transform into like treads, you know, or she'd like kind of partially transform into a car, you know. There was all these little cool drawings he did, and then it just yeah, Matt really just drove that. And you know, he created Shantae and, you know, so many other characters at Way Forward, so it was just, we were just struck by inspiration, and it just took off on its own.
Wow.
Huh. Yeah. I kind of wish we'd seen the wheels.
I mean, you know,
she gets a spinny feet like Sonic does when she goes fast.
It would have been something, but you know, you gotta cull some of your ideas. You know, I like where we landed in the end.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's a charming game.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's the end of Mighty Switch Force Part 1. We'll see you next time for Part 2.